Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project.
I can hear myself.
I can hear you now.
I can hear you.
There
I am.
Now
you
I
are.
can hear you.
Blame it on me.
It's about time.
I'll take the blame. I swear, I would do the whole show without their microphones.
I feel out of sorts in a different seat, wearing a suit. It just feels different for me.
It feels.
This is my second time in this seat, so I feel like it's becoming a thing. I was in your seat before, so watch out.
Maybe we should just change seats. Maybe you
I'm
should.
ready.
sit over
No,
there.
this is good, man. I'm
that.
just getting used to the landscape.
Thank you. Good to see y'all.
Good to see you.
Good to
Just
see
go
you.
into stuff here. There's no. Formula.
All right.
Yeah,
That's
let's
better
go.
because who wants a formula? Like a formula.
Well, they read your names.
Format.
They know who you are. We don't have a
Introduction.
format. What's a format?
No
Hi,
format.
I'm Mandi Pryor.
Nice to meet you, Mandy.
Welcome. Nice to meet you, Rocco, Natalie, Eric.
Oh, it's going to be one of those kind of things going on. I want to talk about the post potential of the pandemic. I'm not even going to use that C word. The pandemic, which isn't any better, but life after the pandemic, and we're now there. We are in that. I honestly believe that. Like, it's, at least to me, it feels like we're. So I want to first throw that out. Do the three of you feel like we are entering, or we're really moving into the post-pandemic era? And how do you personally feel about that? Are you optimistic?
I feel. This is Natalie speaking, by the way. In case anyone doesn't know who this
Natalie.
person is. Hi.
I told you that's why I wanted her sitting
I
there.
love it. I love it. This is going to be a fantastic show.
I can feel the energy already. It's good. I feel as though it all happened a little too quickly.
Okay.
Where, the minute the CDC was like, people don't have to wear masks, I felt like there was this energetic switch that went off for a lot of people, but I feel for a lot of us that had sort of done what we were told to do and did the things we were supposed to, I felt a little drastic to me, where it's like, okay, the body says I'm allowed to do these things because I'm vaccinated, I'm out and about, and I can live my life, but emotionally, psychologically, mentally, I'm still where we were 6 months ago, because the rest of the world isn't where we're at right now. So as somebody that tries to look at things from like a global perspective, it's hard to say, okay, well, the United States is over it, so it must be over, because that's just not what's happening around the world, right? So for me, I'm trying to look at it more measured, where, like, when I walked in today, I still had my mask on because I didn't know what your comfort level would be or where you were at with your vaccinations, and you're trying to be mindful of other people. So I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm also walking in slowly, because I also don't want to get excited, because what if we take a few steps back? We have all these variants from other countries and things happening. So I'm trying to be mindful of like my own mental state around it, that I don't want to almost get excited, because
Interesting.
what if? So I think that those seeds of doubt have really been planted, at least in my mind, that we're really coming out of it. But I want to be. I really want to be. So there is that.
I do think that you're more located towards the city. The city isn't as open as the suburbs are. This morning, I was supposed to hold a virtual networking session. We canceled it. There was one
there's nobody
sign
there.
up from somebody in London, actually. So I have no idea how they found us. But it was kind of the end of virtual events as of right now at the chamber. We met in person for another lunch. And, in terms of the South Hills, I feel like it's a lot more open. But if you go downtown, they're still pretty protective.
Right.
So I just try to go with wherever I
Just
am.
go with the flow.
Yeah. I mean, I feel pretty comfortable at this point because I'm vaccinated, but,
Yeah.
I've been comfortable for months. I mean, but I'm an eternal optimist. I mean, that's me, right? So
Sure.
I look at it, I approached the pandemic from not necessarily a global perspective, but from my own perspective. Like, how am I approaching life? And once things, I was ready to open up a year ago, because I believe in health and wellness, and I just had a different viewpoint. I understand what we had is real and it's dangerous, but what frustrated me about everything was we weren't talking about wellness care. We were talking about, reactive medicine. Like, let's vaccinate you, let's treat it. Why don't we prevent it, And I live my life trying to be healthy. So I just kind of looked at it differently. So as things are opening up, I'm extremely optimistic because I learned a lot through the pandemic. I, grew in business, grew as a person, took a lot of time to reflect, and it helped me really think through a lot of things. And for me, like, I'm ready for normal. I've been ready for normal for the longest time, and I think most people and maybe it's just we gravitate towards people that resonate with us. Most of the people that I deal with and most of my clients are all kind of on the same page. People don't want to do virtual anymore. Every one of my clients calling, well, can I come in to meet you? Can I come in to meet you? Can you come meet me? So I have that feeling that people are ready. It's just, June 28th, where everything's done in PA, or the mask mandate's supposed to be over. And most places I go now, no one's wearing a mask. Like, at least the places I've seen, like in the South Hills. I don't go downtown very often, so I don't see things down there. But like today, I walked into CVS, no one had a mask on. The gym I go to, no one wears masks. So I'm optimistic for what's ahead, if that makes sense.
Besides what you touched on, because I'm kind of there with you, there's a part of me when I go into a store now. My wife and I had a circumstance about 3 weeks ago when I think it was officially okay if you're vaccinated not to wear a mask. But there was an apprehension that I had, not of my own health at that moment, but the fact that a little bit of fear. I just didn't. I'm so used to seeing everybody masked up and keeping distance, and now I think about just being around people in a crowded fashion, and I'm still not quite there yet. I'm okay,
sure,
but there's still a mental hang up, and I'll admit that. It's the tough thing for me to admit, but I will admit it.
Sure.
No, I think that's honest. And for me personally, like when I travel from now on, like I'm going to be on a plane for work in August going out to Colorado, I'm going to wear a mask. I'm going to wear a mask if I'm on the subway in New York from now on. I'm going to probably wear a mask, in crowded open spaces. My husband and I drove down to Charleston, South Carolina a couple weeks ago just to do like just need to get the hell out of here. Oh, am I allowed to swear?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, my gosh.
I don't know what the rules are. It's a free-for-all.
He wouldn't be on the show.
Okay.
I'm Italian. You'll hear F-bombs. You'll hear a lot of F-bombs today.
They say that's a sign of intelligence.
They do.
Absolutely.
There you go. I'm right there with you.
You obviously didn't go to my high school.
That's also fair.
Sorry.
Also fair. But yeah, I think just in different spaces now, I'm going to be more mindful. And also, I don't know how anybody else was during the winter, but I didn't even get the sniffles.
Yeah.
And I realized, I was like, oh, wow, it's because I was wearing a mask out in public during cold and flu season. So there were some benefits, I think. And other parts of the world, like especially in Asia, they've been doing that for years. Yeah. So I think there are certain niceties that could come out of thinking about other people around you. Like if you do have the sniffles, maybe just wear a mask at the grocery store and don't spread it around. Or stay home if you can.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think there's things to learn about not just ourselves, to your point, but also how we relate to the rest of the world, because it's not just about us, it's about the rest of us too. So I'm excited to see if any of that will stick or resonate with people as we move forward.
What does your gut tell you?
I worry a little bit about it all.
That's what I do.
I want to believe. I want to believe
You're
in
the
people.
optimist.
I think I am, but to your point, I believe in like that eternal optimism inside me too, that bubbles up, But I think sometimes it's hard. To stay in that space.
It's
but
America.
We keep trying.
It's America. Look, and people are. I truly believe that this country was founded on individualism, right? We wanted to do our own thing.
And religious fanatics.
True. Okay, but I think
Amen.
That America, like we're going to do what we want, and I do think people, are good. By nature, I think that they want to do the right thing. But I also think, and this is why I think a lot of the approach was wrong to the whole pandemic. When you tell Americans not to do something, they're like, fuck you, I'm going to do it. Because you're telling me not to. If you approach it in a different way, it's all about the nuance of language, in my opinion, and the nuance of the message. And I think that's where we went wrong. And that's why there was a lot of pushback on a lot of these things. If the politicians would have got up and said, we don't know what this is. We're confused. We're trying to figure it out. Bear with us. Here's how you can help. Not do this, then do this. There was too many directives and commands. It was confusing. I would have been more respectful of what was going on if they would have admitted, we have no fucking idea.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure it out as we go.
They're not
Just
going to
help
say
us.
that, though.
But I don't agree with that. I don't think if the president at the time would have gotten up there and said, I don't know what's happening, I don't think people would have been okay with that.
No.
Well, right. I mean, he's in an interesting position because whatever he says, one way or the other, someone's going to have an issue with it. I'm just thinking in the more general perspective of governors and politicians and the health, the
way it was communicated.
The way it was communicated.
Because a directive to me is, I'm making the assumption I'm getting a directive from a politician or a Department of State that must be for my best interest, because that's what government's supposed to do, protect the people.
Yeah.
So you assume that that's gospel. Yeah. And a directive to me means not an absolute, but something pretty damn important.
Yeah.
When in a directive, then all of a sudden is unfounded later.
Yeah.
And it was quote unquote wrong, and the person giving the directive or the group giving the directive invalidates it, then we kind of step back and say, wow, it creates a level of distrust. And I agree with you. There's the president or anyone in power is in a tough spot because they just can't. We want them to be honest with us, but they really can't be.
But we don't want them to be honest, but we
with
don't. We
us.
want them to be honest, but we don't.
Well,
right?
it seems like in the beginning, it felt like a week that they were like, hi, everybody, there's COVID. Okay, everybody go home. Everything's shut down. And then coming out of it, I feel like it's the same. It's like, okay, COVID's over. Everybody take your mask off. And you're like, wait.
And that's your
We've
point.
just been through
that's
a year.
That's a good point.
Like,
Yeah.
so fast.
Yeah.
And I worry about the fall. It's not summer. I'm not as worried about summer because,
Everything's
the
outside.
sunshine, it's supposed to help, not have as many germs. But what's going to happen in the fall when flu season comes back? These germs are kind of easier or more able to breed. Like, where are we going to stand then?
To your point, though, I think what this did teach a lot of us is, okay, maybe we will wear masks. Like the fact that we had to tell people, wash your hands, don't cough and sneeze on people. Like that to me was like, we should be doing that anyway.
Don't tell me to wash my hands. I'm an American.
Right. Well, I mean, but think about it. Like we had to tell people, I typically have 6 feet. Like I'm not going to get in your face when I'm talking to you. But
I appreciate that. Thank you.
He sneezed on me like 3 times.
No,
he's
I did
guilty.
not. It was across the conference room table. You're good. But I think, to your point, I think there will be some good that comes out of this. I think we will see less, severe flu seasons because people are learning that, hey, these things did actually help. Like
Social distancing,
being more hygienic, and just being aware of others. Right. That's the one problem that I think Americans do have. We're very egocentric. We're not aware of others around us. I think this taught us to be aware. I think so. It taught me. Like I know I can be egocentric. That's just my nature. But it taught me, one, to look around, make sure I'm doing the right things, and being concerned of my fellow human. That's kind of how. And I think if that is, translated across multiple parts of the population, I think we'll come out of this better. That's my optimism.
I agree, because it's actually not altruism to care about other people. It's actually very self-interested in a good way.
Yeah.
Because when you do well, I do well.
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
you do, and all the people around us here in Coriopolis or wherever they're at, that's the funny thing about it. It's like when we take care of one another, as corny as that sounds, it actually benefits us too.
Well, it makes you feel better. I mean, it makes
Yeah.
it's like the more you do for others, it
Yep.
does come back and makes you feel better. And then you feel guilty about that, but then you do it again and you just keep going.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it does have its good points.
It's kind of like that phrase that you and I bounce around a lot with one of the business philosophers we like, Zig Ziglar. And he had this phrase, and it was geared more toward networking and business, but you help enough people get what they want, you can have everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in society, if you're kind and considerate and helpful, it will come back.
Yes.
It just takes a little longer.
It does.
And I think that's the key there. You have to have
does.
patience.
Yeah.
Because when you're doing the right thing,
On a
sometimes you don't
societal
see it,
level.
right?
Yeah.
As opposed
Yeah.
to when you kind of cheat or skirt around or just do what you need to do. Yeah, you might have that instantaneous short-term gain. There's this guy I listen to every now and then. His name's Jay Shetty. He wrote this book, Think Like a Monk. It's an interesting book.
Great book.
And he talked about this idea that the things that aren't, I don't want to say good or bad, but we'll just use those for a lack of a better term. The things that maybe aren't great for you, you want to do those in that instantaneous moment. So you decide to do them before you do them, right?
Yeah.
But the things that are good or better for you in the long term, you don't want to necessarily do them, but when you do them, you feel better. So it's delayed gratification, like going to the gym, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want to go to the gym. I'm tired. But I go to the gym. Oh, I feel great.
Yeah.
As opposed to, oh, I feel like, having a few cocktails at lunch because I'm having a bad, and then, I feel like shit for the rest of the night. That was a bad
exactly.
So it's instantaneous gratification versus delayed. And I think Americans could take a page out of that book and learn a little bit about patience as it pertains to long-term gain.
Yeah.
I think when you get older too, you start enjoying harder work. Like you start enjoying projects and things that take
Fulfillment.
longer, and it's more rewarding at the end. And I think when you're younger, you're just like, oh my gosh, I want this bag, or I want to go here, and I'm going to go here. So, I mean, it's all about finally getting freedom from your parents when you're young, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, I want to kind of be like them now.
Well, and I think
crazy.
And I think when you're young, right, you want things quick because you don't have you have no concept of time.
Exactly.
As you get older, you
Neither do you.
right. But well,
Well, that's a whole other conversation.
Let's park that physics conversation over here. But think about it. Like when
Theoretical
you're
time.
When you're young, right, you don't have this concept because everything's moved so fast. You just want it right now. As you get older, I believe that now you understand time. You understand the importance of time and how little of it we do have. But we have the appreciation of the time it takes to do something. So we're more willing to take the time to do it. That's at least how I looked at myself over time. As I've gotten older, I know the things that are worth it take longer, take more effort, but I'm more willing to do it now than I was 10 years ago.
Well, I think that's the problem with digital media and social media, because we've created an environment for ourselves where we see people that are overnight successes, but actually it's 25 years in the making, right? But everything appears instantaneous. And so it's a real mind fuck for everybody, right? Younger and older, because we all go on to these websites or these apps and we're like, I'm supposed to be like that. I'm supposed to already have that. Why am I not there? And so it can really derail what you're saying, that understanding that no, these things actually take a really long time. They take a lot of commitment, a lot of courage, a lot of perseverance. And that, to me, I think is the biggest hurdle in our modern culture is sort of teasing that out. What is actually real and what is insta-real?
Yeah, that's a great point. Because that's what social media does, right?
Yeah.
It creates this false sense of success.
And
I believe that, look, I'm 43 years old. I've been practicing law almost 2 decades. To get to have my own firm and have a team of people, like it's, people think it happened fast, but I tell my friends, like, I've been doing this for fucking 20 years, like in and out,
hard.
7 days a week. Yes, exactly. Those sleepless nights, like it's hard work. No one sees that shit. They just see the end result, right? They see like there's that. I think I might have said it on another show, but there's that meme that I love. I saw it. I'm like, it's vulgar, and it says everybody wants to congratulate you when you're pregnant, but they don't know how many times you had to get fucked to do it.
Oh my!
But think about that. That's business. That's success, right? Like to get to where we all are. Think about how much shit we had to go through. Think about how many times we got screwed.
Well, and I brought up on our last show, I had stage fright for over 30 years, and that's why I pursued what I did, because I wanted to get over it. I knew there was going to be a day I did, and basically, for the most part, it's gone. I can go anywhere, talk to anyone, go on stage or whatever. But that took a long time and a lot of failures. So, humiliation comes along with that too.
Absolutely.
So
being humble.
Going back and trying again, it does take time. And it does take commitment. I mean, really, you have to be committed to what you want.
The first time I spoke on stage, I was shitting my pants. It's just like, I don't know, like, are they going to like it? Is it a message that resonates, to the point where then I did a TED Talk. It was just, but I had to go through those motions of that fear, that nervousness, that complete just lack of confidence in myself. But you have to go through those reps, and that's what people don't.
It's called doing the work.
People don't want to do it. That's like, to your point, social media makes you think that, like, wow, look, you can have, sell some cryptocurrency, you can have a Lamborghini. It's like, no. These people that actually do this crypto shit spend a lot of time researching, understanding, doing the math. Like, it's not that easy. And that's where society has veered off course, because we're showing this younger generation, I have kids, right? We all have kids, that it's easy. It's not. To be successful in this country, you can do it, and I believe anybody can be successful in this country, if you're willing to do the work, and the work that no one else is willing to do. That's what I believe.
That too.
And I think when we're putting in people's faces obscene wealth, not just
Yeah.
the wealthy,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Not the
absolutely.
working wealthy, not the millionaires, but when
The
we're putting
working
the
wealthy, excellent
and
comment.
that's
good-
the
that is
truth,
good.
right?
Yep.
But when we're putting people like shoving the Kardashians, for an example, because they're just so ubiquitous, right?
Yes.
But they really represent the last 20 years
Yeah.
of reality television and
They
where
do.
it has led us. And so there are, I remember growing up with them in high school where it was like they had just sort of made it on TV and it was like, oh my gosh, they're really wealthy, look at what they have. But now that they're approaching billionaire status, whether it's real or a PR strategy
Yeah.
to become a billionaire,
Yeah.
which I think part of it is that, but don't hold me to that. As my lawyer, don't
I
hold
will
me
not.
to that.
I will not. I'll have you sign the
Yeah, thank
engagement
you.
letter when we're
Thank
done.
you. This is just metaphorical. But having said that, I do feel concerned when this is how we're measuring success now,
Yeah.
right? That the only measure of success is obscene financial gain,
Yeah.
not just financial gain, but how much do you really need? How much can you really spend?
Yeah.
And what is that imbalance causing in the rest of our society? And without coupling that with that look, that internal
Yeah.
look, then it's like, okay, we are living in a world now where we're all out for ourselves and we're not taking in the repercussions of how that's impacting ourselves and everyone
Yeah.
around us.
Yeah.
Well, and it's the
agree.
representation of family that's on television. I mean,
Right.
that's a scary thought.
Yeah.
Saying, it used to be like Mr. Belvedere in the Waltons, but now it's, these families who are like planning strategies on how to like launch makeup brands, and that is the family structure that we are aiming toward is like. Everybody's kind of branded.
That's
I mean,
money-
that's
it's
what
money
social media
centric,
is
which
at
is
this
exactly.
point. Everybody's branding
Yeah.
their
You
own
have
selves.
to be.
Yeah.
You have to be
Absolutely.
a brand, and you have
Yeah,
to.
you do. You're right.
And that's the catch-all of this too. It's like there's no escaping that.
No,
you
there's
know.
not.
And the minute you talk about that openly, people are like, "Shh, don't say that." It's like, but that's the reality.
It
of
is.
Absolutely.
If you have a presence on social media, whether you have 100 people that follow
Yeah.
you or 100 million, you're branding yourself.
Yeah.
And so when you take yourself as a brand, that is a total disconnect from your own sense of
Excellent
self and
point.
reality, right? So how
Excellent
do
point.
you integrate that back into yourself so that you can remain authentic to who you are? Because you can start to buy into that hype and that nonsense of
Absolutely.
like, but that's not who you are.
Yeah. I
And
think
kids watch that. So this is my concern. It's like, what is this psychologically doing to our children?
Well, and they're constantly searching. Like if they were sitting in the studio right now, they'd be like, okay, I'm on TikTok. I'm like, they'd be like, this lava lamp, if I do that, they're constantly thinking of how to create content. How can I create
that
interesting
is
content so
100% true.
other
Yeah.
people are looking at me?
but I think
part of that's amazing though.
Yeah.
Because I like the creative. I think if it's pushing people toward a way of, because that's the photographer in me, creating
yeah.
beauty. Because
Yeah.
there's a beauty in the way
there
things are
is.
filmed, and I get that part.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
but pushing them to
But the commodification
bingo,
of that, right?
yeah,
Right.
it's how do I if I do this, I'll extract this amount of money from
Yeah.
that, and which is usually delusion anyway.
Right.
Right.
But
Oh my gosh, that's true because I do a couple of jobs. One is in media myself, but then also I do a lot of media consulting, and I talk with a lot of brands that want influencers. And when you are working on behalf of brands to then connect with influencers, and you realize how little money an influencer makes
Yeah.
unless you have millions.
Yeah.
Of followers. I just don't think people understand, oh, you have 200,000 followers. No wonder she can afford that Louis Vuitton
Yeah.
bag in her photo.
We've
It's like,
had
well,
this
that's her mom's
conversation. Yeah.
bag,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's
Or she bought it, she's going to return
or
it
she's
tomorrow.
going to return it tomorrow, and
Man.
she got maybe $1,000 to do this post,
You mean-
which I'm not in any way like all money. Bring me all the money. It's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not saying no.
You mean my
If you would like
my
an endorsement
Insta-
by
Exactly.
Yeah.
But like $1,000 doesn't get you very far
No.
if you're trying to think of how
Yeah.
you're going to do this as a kid, like full time, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's just a lot of disconnect here between what's really going on and what is being perceived.
And I think a lot of it with social media. So I look at, like, to your point, like, I'm a brand, right? I'm a lawyer. I own a law firm.
Right.
I own businesses. I'm my brand. So, I'm pretty like you do the social media for the firm, and which is fantastic. But I handle my own Instagram, and I make that's me. I'm authentic. Like it's like you're gonna see my kids. You're gonna see when I fuck up shit. You're
Right.
gonna see just my thoughts. I just put things out there because it's not about becoming an influencer or making money off of it. It's part of who I am. It's right.
Yeah.
It's my business. It's my brand. I am my brand.
Right.
But I always looked at it as it's me being authentic. Like I'm never going to put something out there that I don't believe in or would say to someone. And I see too many people, like people I know personally, that put shit out on social media. I'm like, that's not anything what you think. Like your life is a complete fucking train wreck. Like just be honest. Like I appreciate
it's too
honesty.
painful to be honest like that, you know? That's the problem.
But think about how that would change society going forward.
If we looked at vulnerability as a strength.
It's absolutely, that is a great point. That is one of the biggest strengths I think a person can have is just being vulnerable. Open the kimono, let people in. I think if you're willing to be vulnerable, I think that's how you become successful.
No, that word that goes with that is humility. You gotta be
Exactly.
humble. I mean, that's that humble thing again. It's like you don't have to do anything. My essence of trying to enter every arrangement or conversation or meeting with pure humility, as if I don't know anything, and I'm here to experience this person and make my evaluations through my understanding, and lead with that.
Yeah,
my life has changed. You know, and I wish I would have learned this 35 years ago.
Absolutely.
Even 10 years ago. You know, but
Sure.
different way of living.
Yeah.
That's age talking maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I think to your point about success, right? I think we have to define success differently. I think it's not about wealth. I think it's everybody defines success their own way, right? The four of us sitting in this room each have our own definition of success, be it financial or otherwise. Like I look at, success to me is freedom. It's freedom to be my authentic self and do what the fuck I want when I want. Like that's success.
Right.
Regardless of what money that takes to do it, everybody's different. If I want to go to Dubai every month, that's going to take a lot more money than going to Virginia Beach.
I recommend
it's just right. But I'm saying I think that's what we need to start teaching kids and teaching the generation coming up that success, there isn't a definition of success, an objective, quantifiable definition. It's very subjective, and it shouldn't be based around purely financial wealth. It just shouldn't.
100%.
No.
Because it's an impossibility to define success by that. That's a way to keep score. That's a way to measure certain things you're doing, but that shouldn't be how you define ultimate success in life. That's my belief.
Do you think that's where self-development material bottoms out? Like, I've ingested a lot of self-development material in my life, and when it goes toward these strategies, when you get into that kind of stuff and that material, strategies to live a successful life, but they're not trying to have you self-examine to find out who the hell you are and what you really dig, because unless you really immerse yourself in what you really like and feel good about, you don't have a chance at success, because you're never going to know. You may attain something through a scheme or through a pattern or through work, but in the end, if you're doing something that you really isn't congruent with who you are, the money isn't going to bring you, I don't think, what you would label to be success, because you equate success with happiness, right? I don't know.
Well, and I think growing up in your 20s, you're really trying to still kind of fit in.
I still don't remember
but
those decades.
I'm so proud of myself that this year, I firmly accept that I love to wear Adidas slides with socks any time of year.
That's vulnerability.
I put that out on social media, and I feel so good about it. But that's the thing, is like what you were talking about, is putting yourself out there, being authentic, whether you like socks with sandals or
I love them.
anything else. You're also showing other people that it's okay to not follow every single rule of, say, the Kardashians. You don't have to wear heels in the middle of the day in your kitchen. You can wear whatever, you don't have to follow all the rules to be successful. Just be yourself and be super confident and comfortable with that.
Parenting supposed to play a bit in this, maybe?
Right. I mean, I think without any introspection on the part of the teacher, right? How can you pass anything of use down to the student? So I think a lot of times, too, we've all grown up in sort of these toxic cycles of what success is. And unless you're willing to break that cycle for yourself and do some real soul searching in a real way, right? Not for show, but for a real sense of, I want to feel better for myself, whatever that looks like. I think it's very hard to break these cycles because our kids are watching us, and not just our personal children or stepchildren, but the children in our lives, the adolescents in our lives, the young adults in our lives. They're watching us and they're mimicking what we're doing because they're looking at us as successful, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They don't know yet what their own path is going to be. So I think it's really that idea of being cognizant of the words that are coming out of your mouth and the sentiments behind them and the actions
Absolutely.
that accompany those words. And to me, that's how we can really change a generation is by working on ourselves first.
100%. And it's we're setting the example. I'll give you an example that literally happened last night. My daughter Ellie, she's 11, she's going to be 12. She wanted to get contacts. So I was in Miami when she got her contacts. She was super frustrated trying to get them in. Laura doesn't wear contacts. I wear contacts. So I got home yesterday and I tried to help her, showing her, how to put them in. And she was getting frustrated. And I said, look, you don't need to do this. You're pretty young for contacts right now. You don't have to do this. Just take a break. And so she didn't know if she was going to do it or not. And then I started walking downstairs and she was standing up on the landing with Laura, and she asked her, hey, what do you think about? Are you just going to not do the contests? We don't have to get them. She's like, no. She's like, I think I want to keep trying because I know Daddy wouldn't give up. And it's just, and I've never tell her, I tell her certain things, but she's watching.
It's the action.
They watch.
They watch.
They watch everything.
They watch. I mean, and that's what we have as parents. We have, just in society in general, I think, be kind to people. Treat people with decency and respect. That's it. Like, open doors for people. Like, do the things we're taught to do as children. I think it was there was a generation where it was lost. People became very egocentric and they just lost that ability to help others.
That was called the 80s.
Yeah. I mean, I was a kid.
I was there.
I was a kid. But I think, to your point, I think we have to be the example, and we have to be very cognizant of, like you said, the words we choose in the actions we choose.
Well, and the irony was, during this pandemic, we were expecting children to do things that we weren't doing ourselves.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
We
100% right.
wanted children
Yes.
to wear masks 8 hours a day, which they did in schools.
Yes.
And they were, I mean, it was just wild, like, how amazing kids are. They are amazing, right?
So
Young people are
resilient.
incredible. They are resilient.
Yeah.
They're adaptable, and they'll do it.
Yeah.
And we were having a much harder time, I think, accepting it. So I think sometimes, too, part of that humility and that introspection is also looking to our children, because they are closer to the divine in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
They
can
aren't
learn
as
from
far
them.
down this road. They haven't experienced as much. And in a way, that sense of innocence can do us all good to tap back into.
That's such a true statement.
It's and I consider myself, relatively speaking, a pragmatic person, but I really get nervous when I think that we have so much selfishness in society. It really it bothers me, and I think it was on full display at times during this pandemic. It was bothersome to me.
And to your point, I would get, during like the height of this lockdown, I found myself, because I'm a very extroverted person. I know that might be hard for you guys to understand.
You don't
we're
say.
This room might be a little bit
very
of a
shy room.
Yeah, I can tell. I'm in good company here with me and the rest of them. Yeah. And I was really depressed, right? And I'm not somebody that I don't really deal with depression, right?
I
Naturally.
hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
Rock bottom.
Yeah. And so I felt very isolated and very depressed. And I would get into these really negative headspaces about the way of the world and where the direction, and I would get down. And then I would tap back into the local community, because for me, whenever you start to feel like you can't do anything and you feel that sense of paralysis, the first thing I always think of is the ancestors, like the people that came before us and what they fought through and lived through and thrived through, right? And that always brings me hope, because it's true, everything is temporary. Even this will pass. And two, then I say to myself, how can I use my hands? Because I can't just sit on them, right? And sitting on them is making me feel worse. How can I use my hands, whether it's write a check to an organization I wanted to support, or call somebody that I know is feeling worse than I am, or getting involved with my community on whatever level I can during this time. I just started making meals for my elderly neighbors, like whatever I could do to just show a little love to people, because I needed to feel love. And I wasn't even living alone. I was living with my husband, so I was really reaching out to people that I knew were living alone. And to me, I think whenever we're feeling in that headspace, it's like, use your hands, in whatever way you can. That helps me.
I mean,
anyway.
I had a couple things, during the summer, I made sure we relaunched, which it finally came in from, I think, Yugoslavia, our free little pantry in the front of the building at the chamber office, and we had it filled, and we've been running it, and it's a lot of work. You have to keep going back to the store, keep getting gift cards. That was huge. We did Dress for Success campaign, anything we could do to kind of keep things going. But at the same time, as you said, I'm extremely extroverted. I'm always around people, and my admin and I were switching out. So I didn't see her for months.
Yeah.
And in December, I started, which I said, moonlighting over at the Cozza Law Group. And there was 3 of them there, or 4. Wait, there's 4 of you. And I came back and I was like, oh my gosh, people. And we talked and it felt normal. And, you know, that was huge for me because I had been home day after day on my computer, day after day. And it gets you down, especially it was winter too. So, and it feels like Florida, by the way, in the upstairs office. It's, you know, the air conditioner's on now, but it's warm up there. It felt great. It
in
was
our
a
office,
wonderful experience.
oh my God, it's like a sweat box.
Yeah.
We're in an old building with no central air and there's
a
window
Victorian
air.
building.
It's beautiful. It's
It is
beautiful,
gorgeous.
but it's really, really hot, and I'm just hot by nature.
Yeah.
So it's terrible. But to your point, like I same thing. Like I wasn't actually. I remember when the pandemic happened, and I was supposed to go out that weekend for St. Patty's Day with a friend from college. And I'm thinking to myself, there's no way this is going to shut down. Like I was meeting 10 to 12 new people a week, like just meetings, like around people, to now being locked in my basement, where I set up my office for 3 months. I lost my mind, and I'm an optimist. I'm personal development guy. I started spinning out of control. Like the thoughts I had, the things that were going through my head. And to your point, like I wouldn't use the analogy of using my hands. I literally just had to beat myself up and just snap myself back into place. And I remember it was like at the beginning of May. I just looked in the mirror one day and I said, dude, what the fuck? Like, just get your shit together. Like, you're mentally strong. You got it. And I just went back to the office. I just said, I'm going back to the office. I had to get out of that environment because, you know, I was home with Laura and the kids, and it was just... You still felt alone. Like, I felt alone. Like, because being with your family is one thing, but if you, as an extrovert, right, I need to be around other people. I get my energy from other people, and I felt all I did was work, low energy, and it's just, I had to snap myself back into place. So to use my hands, I just like use my hands to just kick myself in the ass and say, dude, do something different, because it was hard. I know, never experienced anything like that in my life. It was the most difficult time of my life up to this point. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think a lot of people felt that way for sure. And to your point too, you know, I don't know if any of you experienced any loss during this time period, but
did.
And I'm so sorry. And so that is another layer that I don't think we societally or collectively are addressing, just that we've lost over 600,000 people. Like,
absolutely.
So when people say everything's going back to normal, it's not. And I think it's a travesty for us to not honor that space and that sacredness of saying we need to grieve as a nation for all of the things that we've lost, for our sanity that we've lost over the years, for our businesses, for our friends, you know, for people that have died or people that are experiencing long-term effects that are not going to be the same. And so I think we really need to tap into that self-compassion because that's how we're going to generate it outward, right? So you allowing yourself to be down with self-compassion. Maybe you didn't even know that, but just but allowing yourself to be like, this is where I'm at right now.
That's a really good point, because I was never a person to let myself. Like, I always felt like I had to be the strong one. Like, I'm leading a family, I'm leading a company. I had to be that strong guy, and I broke down. Like, it was like a car just like broke down on the side of the road, and I had to let myself. I mean, you're right. Like, you don't, looking back, like, I let myself break down. Then I had to put myself back together. And I feel like I came out stronger. And I just look at the world differently now. And I feel like if I can go through that period, I can pretty much go through anything, because that was literally the wheels fell off the bus and I had to put everything back together. And it's like Humpty Dumpty fell off a wall, and I was as fat as Humpty Dumpty as well, because I was eating like crazy. But you're right. Like, that's a really good point. Like, I never thought about it that way, but it was hard.
Well,
really
and
hard.
I've said that there's a lot of lessons that were learned during this period too. And just like you, I had probably the hardest year of my life this year. And, you know, putting myself back together and putting everything that I've known back together, I got to leave a lot of the bad stuff behind, and then coming back to remember, like, who you are and the stuff you want to add and the stuff you want to do. Like, I've started a new bucket list, like, of all things. They
Ice
all
skating,
know
right?
I'm a figure skater again. Since,
I love that.
like, the longest time since I was
That's
12.
awesome,
I have
though.
a coach. I'm out there. I'm going to go to competition eventually whenever I get the time, which is never. And,
We will be
you
in the
know,
front row.
Yeah. I
right.
mean, I seriously
Throwing
need a
stuff
big,
at you.
send a teddy bear down. I've always wanted to do that.
And if anything goes wrong, just say that your lace is broke.
You
That
know,
seems to be
I
the
do feel like
prevailing
Tanya
excuse.
Harding out there. My place. I don't know what happened. But, I did that. That was something I've always wanted to go back and do, and it's so random. But trying to come up with a new bucket list and kind of reconfiguring everything and seeing where it goes. And you have to think, not only am I doing that, he's doing that, you're doing that. Everybody is going, what just happened over the past year? How can I get back to myself, and what do I want to leave behind? Because I think that there's lessons to be learned, and there's a lot to be taken from what just happened to everyone, which is, life is going to go on, and now it's getting better. So what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
Redefining joy.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, life, it taught me that life is fragile, and looking forward, like, I don't want to do anything that doesn't bring me joy, happiness, or some sort of fulfillment. And you start eliminating things. Like, I started looking at, like, businesses I was involved with, like, acquaintances that just didn't do, not that they're bad people, that just didn't do anything for me anymore. It's just I didn't feel good being around them, and I realized that how quick things can turn on a dime. Like, our world got turned upside down instantaneously.
Yes.
And, like, to think about how fragile that makes life, and you have to start looking at things differently. And I did, and I said, what really matters, and what do I really want to spend my time doing?
So it's a little personal, but I'll share this. I think it's timely. So we, as realtors, were told in Pennsylvania that we had to stop working, and I don't know the exact date. But that was mind-numbing to me. I had plenty of conversations with you on it. Just you go from this flurry of activity to then being told that you can't even contact or speak about real estate with your clients. It was just nuts. I then, at that time, I've had a father in rehab for dementia for many years. It's been very difficult. And he passed. We were told he didn't pass from COVID, but it didn't make it any worse or any better. He expired during COVID, a couple of days after we were shut down. And going into that facility to see him the night before he expired, and having to put like a hazmat suit on, and seeing my mother with a hazmat suit on, and watching her not being able to grieve. And it sounds like a woe is me scenario, but it really gave me a moment to sit and think, like, wow, I've had life so good, yet I'm still once in a while bitching about things, right?
Yeah.
And I remember coming home and, like, couldn't do a funeral. And I'm laying on the couch, and all of a sudden I'm watching television, doing the thing that I never do, watching TV. I look at myself and go in the bathroom. I looked at myself in the mirror. I was hungover from drinking the night before, just trying to drown my stupid sorrows. And at that moment, I don't know what clicked in me. Something just changed, and everything changed from me.
Yeah.
I started going on these long 90-minute walks per day. I changed my entire diet. I gave up alcohol immediately. Haven't drank since. I figured I can't change the bug. I can't bring my dad back. I can't. There's lots of things I can't do. I can't fix my wife's unemployment. I can't do anything. But I have to fix what I can fix, having to do with me. I mean, I had given up on this show, but I talked to you like, what am I going to do? I might as well shut this down. We were just getting momentum. But then we found a way. We started doing shows remotely. I talked about that. That was a way, mental space for me to get people. And all of that was important to me to just change my state. And now I look back on it now. So elements of COVID for me personally have been a couple of the best months I've ever had in a lot of ways, as tough as it is. I'm ready for COVID to be gone. But I had to say, I didn't fix myself entirely. I don't think we ever truly do that. But I knew that I had to do what I could do within what was in my control. Does that make any sense? And I sit here as a happier person today, a much healthier person here today. But you just have to do the work. It's work.
And I can relate to that. I lost my dad in 2019 to alcoholism, and then 3 months later lost my grandmother, who was like my mother, right? And so that happened, then I found myself sort of like in this very nihilistic space. Once again, I'm not a down person, but you start to reevaluate everything when you lose a parent. It just happens. And then in March of 2020, I walked into the Post-Gazette to ask them for support with my bereavement. I needed some time, and it ended up turning into a very abusive meeting. And so I decided to quit. And the funny thing was, I've always been a planner.
Yeah.
I've always been somebody that's like, I'm not going to jump until I know the next
Right.
rock in the river and all of that.
Right.
And after you lose a parent, and I think, and the reason I'm saying this isn't to, be woe is me, but I understand where you're at, where something clicked, right? For you, it was your physical health. It was an instantaneous thing. For me, it was my mental health and my sense of self.
Yeah.
And I was like, I am not going to be abused. Life is short. I just lost my dad and my grandmother. 2 pillars in my world are now gone. This person's going to abuse me at work. That's not happening. I'm done. I'm out.
Right.
I put in my 2 weeks. I was done. Then the pandemic hit. And I was like, and I always joke, I was the asshole that quit a full-time job with benefits right before pandemic, right? So, and it taught me to bet on myself.
Yeah.
Like, and
Love
if
that.
and
Yes.
if anything
Love that.
that I feel like we all have similarly in this room is a sense of resilience
Yeah.
and recognizing that we can stand on our own
Yeah.
feet no matter what happens around us, right? We can knock ourselves down and build ourselves up. We can transform ourselves. We can reinvent, we can work around.
Yeah.
And I think that was the best thing that happened to me during the pandemic, was that recognition that it's okay to believe that I can do things on my own, because for so long, and I think too as women, it's a relational experience, right? We're always trying to please and relate.
Yes.
And when you let go of that, whether you sometimes want to or not, and you say, I don't care anymore if people like me. I don't care. I'm not doing this. I'm not going to play this game anymore because this is hurting me. I'm being hurt by this game. Then I think you can really tap into your essence and to your authentic self and to your purpose. And so for you, I think what I found really fascinating about what you just said was that you had this sense of clarity, right? Following the death of your father, recognizing immediately recognizing where he was and where you were in that moment, and with the conditions put upon you, just acknowledging that like these things are happening around me, but I'm going to happen to me.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So both of your stories just made something click in my head about when I made the jump, right? I talked about when I left corporate America. It was my grandmother who was like, my mother's an amazing woman and raised me, but my grandmother was a huge influence on me. One of like the biggest influences in my life. I turned 40 in August of 17. And I had been wanting to leave my job because it was corporate. I had started my firm, but it was a great hedge. Like I could just do what I wanted to do, and I never had a reason. I didn't have enough confidence in myself. My grandmother passed away in December of 2017. In February, I jumped.
Yep.
And it was just, and I never put the pieces together. But hearing both of you say that, like that was a catalyst. Really,
No
it's like
question.
it was. Life is short, and I knew she believed in, and it was almost like I felt like she believed in me so much, and like I wanted to build that legacy for her. I wanted to show her that like everything you believed about me since I was a kid, I'm gonna fucking show you that I can do it. And I walked in and just resigned, said I'm done, and that was it, and just jumped and
powerful,
didn't have a plan, but just did it. And then I wish I would have done it 5 years sooner.
So I know you mentioned you're Italian, and I know you're Italian, and I know I'm Italian.
I'm Irish.
Half Italian.
Half Italian.
Half Irish, half Italian.
Half Italian. Okay. Well, my grandmother passed away in 2019, and she is the light. She's straight off the boat Italian with a thick accent, and now it's like there's so much I do for my kids through her. Like my little boy was like holding. We have this tiny wooden spoon. It's this big. I can't believe we haven't lost it. It was hers. It makes the perfect cup of coffee, and he's carrying it around everywhere he goes. And I make the cookies at Christmas like she does. And there's so much. The way I cook is like she did, and it's like I just want to bring that. Like she always had a garden, so I have a garden, and it's like I'm living like her spirit through what I'm trying to do. Yeah. So having that loss, and she started to have dementia issues. Having that loss is terrible, but it also pushes you because that person.
Absolutely.
I was her little Tweely bird,
Yeah.
and they make you keep going because you can feel them like you sitting down and say,
like
however you are.
I feel her with me all the time. I was the first grandchild for 16 years, and it was. I was like the apple of her eye, and I just had this bond with her, and I felt like she had this expectation of me, and I didn't want to let her down. And it's just, and still to this day, like I feel that there are moments where I feel her presence, like when I have a decision to make. It's just like I kind of just sit back and almost meditate on it, and I just feel like this is exactly what I should do. and it just comes to me, and it's just an interesting. But I'm glad we had this discussion because I never put the two together. I just thought that was my time to do it, but it was so close in time, and it was the trigger. It really was, and so I appreciate the conversation for helping me get to that point.
She sounds like a wonderful grandmother.
She was amazing. She was.
Can I ask the three of you to briefly state what entrepreneurship means to you? When you hear that phrase, because it gets tossed around a lot, we are in the social media world, right? Now they call it an influencer, which is a poor excuse for an entrepreneur, right? But you hear the word entrepreneur thrown around like, the guys out there, driving a school bus, but he's an entrepreneur too. Everybody's an entrepreneur. Right. That's okay. Everybody can be, in theory. But what does it mean to you when you hear that word?
I think it's an innovator who isn't afraid of hard work and who's crazy enough to think they can do something.
Yes.
Because you do have to be a little crazy.
A little bit.
Like you can't go out on your own if you're somebody that just sort of toes the line. You and I mean crazy in the best possible. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Because I'm basically calling all of us crazy.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Oh, I know I'm crazy.
Yeah. But I do. I think you have to be an innovator that believes in yourself enough to be able to do something and is not afraid to work hard, because I think that's what people don't understand. I think people think when you're an entrepreneur, you work less, right? Because you're working for yourself. I don't have a boss.
No.
Oh my God. I work more now than I ever have because you're trying to make something happen because it's yours.
Aren't you the toughest boss you ever had too?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Beyond.
Yeah.
And you're trying to make it out of thin air. No one's putting a write-up, here's how you do this job. You're creating it from scratch. So
yeah. I mean,
I think that's...
And I look at, to your point, to crazy, I look at entrepreneurship is you have to be a contrarian, right? You have to be able to buck the trends and say, I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to find a different way. And I believe entrepreneurs are chasing freedom, but it's almost like a misnomer, because the freedom is we work a lot more. I work more now than I ever have in my life than when I was in corporate America running the legal department of a global company. But it's how I want to work when I want to work.
Right.
And I have the freedom to come here on a Thursday at 4:00 and talk for a few hours.
Right.
No one's telling me I can't do this. And to me, like, that's entrepreneurship, the ability to design your life in a way that's contrarian to what society tells you your life should be.
That's good.
That's true. I mean, I
you gotta
found
follow
out
that. You gotta follow that one. Follow that one.
I found out very young, despite everything that I had tried for, that I was not Miss Corporate America. I could not have one of those jobs where I sit in an office with hundreds and hundreds of people. I'm very fly by the seat of my pants. I like to have a new idea all the time. I like to see it come to fruition. And I think entrepreneurship, although I think originally entrepreneurs were much wealthier starting out than they are today.
But define wealth.
But I love having an idea, taking it to where it can go, and then seeing you educate yourself through it. And that's the hard part, is you're constantly learning and adapting and learning and adapting, but you see the end sight, and then maybe another idea comes in on this side that feeds into it, another idea, and you're just building into your brand, I guess. So I think entrepreneurship is just innovation in yourself.
Yeah. It's that ready, fire, aim philosophy, right? That's what entrepreneurship is, in the truest sense, I believe. You kind of do a little bit of preparation, you take the shot, and you adjust. You take the shot, you adjust. That's every day I walk in the office. I'm like, shit, what do I have to do today? Oh shit, this came up. Like today, I walked in, totally forgot about a meeting. Walked in after a lunch meeting I had, and I'm like, oh, they're all in the conference room. I'm supposed to be here. Like,
well, and luckily I'm an entrepreneur too, so I'm like, oh, no big deal.
Right, exactly. And you asked me the question you had to ask me, and we did it. So, but that's the thing. It's like it's that ability to adapt on the fly. Like in corporate America, you're kind of boxed into a structure and a framework. This is what you do, how you do it. This is who you report to. This is what you do Monday through Friday. I don't have any idea what I do on a day-to-day. I know the things that need done, but I could go in with an expectation of what my day is going to look like based upon my calendar. That can get completely flipped on its head. Like I had 2 meetings today rescheduled for tomorrow, and I'm on vacation next week for 1 day next week. So it's that adaptability and that craziness. Like that is probably the best word to use. You just have to be crazy enough to believe in yourself that you can do it.
But I love it.
Yeah, I would not trade it for you. You could say, I will pay you $100 million to go back to corporate America. Like, nope.
I just think I had authority problems.
Yeah,
And
I was
for me, it was
just gonna say.
just.
We all have. I mean, I will answer to no one ever again.
I think that's
No,
what it is. But
I am about as unmanageable as you're
Yeah,
going to find
yeah,
as a
yeah.
human being.
And
We
just-
talked about this.
Yeah.
and you have to have mental flexibility, right?
Yeah, that's a
because
great point.
to sort of piggyback off of the adaptability, you also have to be flexible.
Yeah.
And also, coming from the perspective of trying to do this in the media space, I have to tell people when they sort of are like, oh, I want to do this, it's like, well, get ready to hear no all the time.
Yeah.
Punctuated with the occasional yes if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And it's talent, but it's mostly tenacity.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be
absolutely.
willing to hang on
Yeah.
and have the mental strength to do that. And that is hard.
So hard.
That is not easy.
No.
So to me, it's entrepreneurship can be a lot of different things, but to me, it's pretty easy personally.
Mm-hmm.
I do not like to be dictated to by anybody. And when you work for somebody else, not your customer working for someone for hourly wage, for a salary, your time is being dictated by somebody else. That is completely not congruent with me finding happiness.
Yeah.
I can't be happy as I know happiness to be working under someone else's dictation, someone else's order, someone else's demands on me. That's one. The other thing is, I am not free if I am doing something someone else is telling me to do. That is not freedom to me.
Okay.
That in any way, shape, or form. I grew up with an authoritative dad, an authoritative mother, and I did what they said because there was consequences.
Yeah.
I hated every second of that because just how I'm wired. I'm just wired in a way that I don't like to be told what to do. Sometimes it was for my own good.
Yeah.
And sometimes I didn't listen and life wasn't that nice to me.
Yeah.
But you learn.
Yeah.
But I don't like being told what to do, and I don't mean that in a mean way. Ask any real estate broker because brokers will try to put their arms around. They can't manage you or can't directly tell you to do something. They like to put their arms around you and squeeze. It's why I didn't work at Howard Hanna. The corporate environment didn't fit me. I need to be in a place where I have the freedom to do what I do. And I don't mind a framework to work in. I can work with other people. I can earn your trust and earn clients, but I need to do it on my own terms. That's what entrepreneurship means to me. It's so personal. And in the end, I'm a gambler.
Yeah.
I wouldn't bet your $10 of your money on a sports team. I bet on myself.
Yeah.
Every freaking time.
Same.
And I've been betting on myself since the moment I walked out of corporate America in 99, and I have never looked back, and I would never want to go back to being in a cube or being or managing a sales group of salespeople, the impossibility of managing salespeople, right? But it was just having someone's expectations having to be met in order for me to collect money to survive with.
But-
It's okay for others. It's just not okay for me.
But when we're talking about this, though, I think I don't want people to think that there's this sense of rose-colored glasses around entrepreneurship either, because you have to, along with
It's
having
been hard.
along with having a problem with authority, right?
Yeah.
You also have to be a self-motivated person.
Yeah,
you have
absolutely.
to be
Very self-motivated.
self-disciplined.
Yep.
And you have to be organized. You
Yeah.
you can't find success on your own if you can't manage your own schedule and have
Yeah.
the discipline to get up every day and do this,
Yes.
whether you know if there's going to be any money at the end of this
Yeah.
or not.
You have to be self-motivated.
You have to be
Absolutely.
self-motivated.
Most human beings,
100%.
for whatever reason, most human beings in the big picture
And
aren't.
that's okay. I mean,
They're
and
not.
that's the thing. That's why not everyone does this, because they can't,
Yeah. It
right?
has-
It's
Exactly.
not in them.
Right,
And that's
exactly.
fine. Like, if you like punching the clock and going home at the end of the day and not thinking about work, more power to you.
Yeah.
But some
Yes.
of us, we can't turn it off.
No.
No, it pulls you, and that's the whole
Yeah.
thing. I love working, and I mean, I have this like one boss. Okay, he's this Italian guy I work for occasionally. Like, no, it's great. I own my own company. I work for a chamber, but my board basically gives me free reign
Yeah.
of anything I want to do. You know, they might pull me a little bit, but it's not like some boards can be
You're not
very
being
stifling.
micromanaged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and even with Rocco, I'm kind of doing my own thing,
Yeah.
and throwing ideas out there. But it all pulls me. It's not like somebody has to help me along the way. Like, I want to do it. I want to wake up. I want to work as fast as possible and get as much done and see what I can create. You know, that's, I think the difference is I'm so self-motivated that sometimes I do too much.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And should be reining myself in. you know, I mean, I'm here right now, and I'm like, well, I could be, no, it's
And
great.
we
I love
appreciate it.
being on here. It's
Right.
a lot of fun, and I want to be here, and
Yeah.
I want to be doing all the things I'm doing, and I think that's what entrepreneurs
Yeah.
are most passionate about is
Yep.
getting stuff done and seeing where it can go, and
I think the point to
And
your
it's just
point
amazing.
about working for someone else, I think, like, I'm an entrepreneur, right? But I have people that work for me, and I think I encourage an entrepreneurial culture. Like, I don't want people to come in and feel like it's a job. Like, I've told everybody that works for me, like, I'm creating a different type of law firm. I'm creating a culture of individuality, personal growth, professional growth, and I want them to all think like entrepreneurs. I'm trying to encourage that. However, I know, to your point, like, my name's on the wall.
Right.
So I've got to be the hardest worker. I've got to
right.
do more than anybody else. I'm the one that sets the pace. And that's
right.
what an entrepreneur, a true entrepreneur, understands. That I'm setting the pace. I'm putting the work in more than, and I can never, if I'm not going to do it, I can't expect my people to do it. If I'm not going to work that hard, I can't expect my people to work that hard. And I think that as an entrepreneur, you have to understand there's a certain level of just, it sucks sometimes. It's hard, but you have to be willing to have that self-motivation.
The general public doesn't see that.
They
though.
don't. Like, people see the, oh, okay, like, I get to do cool shit. I have nice things. I have a firm. I have people working for me. They don't see when I'm there on a Sunday or at 8 o'clock at night, like, doing, not invoicing,
Or the
but
stress of deals,
Yeah.
the stress of payroll. Meeting payroll is a bitch.
that-
Or just
I mean,
chasing clients, chasing
Chasing
business,
clients,
having that
worried
sort of
about your advertising, your
Absolutely.
brand. All of it is part of the package.
worrying
Yeah.
about the people. Like, I always say, I get paid last. Like, I got to
Right,
make sure all of my
exactly.
people are taken care of. Like, that's my first priority, family, my employees, then myself. And that's how I view it. And as an entrepreneur, and if you have people work, you have to understand that. Like, you have to look at it that way, because that motivates me even more. Knowing that I have these people relying on me for their livelihood pushes me even further.
Responsibility.
And I'm
Yeah,
glad that you
absolutely.
said that, because that's been something that's really motivated me as well. It's like, if it's just about me, it's not that exciting. It's not that
Exactly,
interesting.
yes.
But when I think about, oh, this person that's working with me, or this person that we're about to hire, like, oh, think of what we could do now, and think of what they can do.
Yep.
I'm always thinking about, like, how people around me can grow, and it gets
Yeah.
me very excited, and it re-energizes me.
Love
And
that.
so I fall into that mindset of, like, I think it's important when you're looking at leadership, and you touched on some of the notes of it without saying the actual word, but servant leadership, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Where it's
Yes.
like, you can be a leader that leads from the front, says, come on, follow me, or you can be in the back
Yep.
pushing everybody forward to
Yeah,
do their best,
yeah.
right? And I think to that point, that's where there's sort of a split in different types of entrepreneurs, right? Because there are people that are doing it just for their own
Yeah.
personal gain, but I don't think in the long run that is as fulfilling, because if it's just about you,
Yeah.
so
No.
what?
And I think
You know?
to your point on leadership, I think that the servant leadership, and that's a great statement, and I know the philosophy behind it. And I think, I look at leadership as, I tend to think I'm a servant leader. Like, that's how, I serve my people. I want to encourage them to grow. However, I know if the shit hits the fan, that's on me.
Exactly.
And I will. None of my people will ever take the fall. I will, because it's me, and I want them to all understand. And that's why I encourage them. Like, you can make mistakes, because I'm going to take the heat. Like,
Right.
I'll give you the
Right.
credit when you do something amazing or a client's happy. That's you that did it. If the shit hits the fan, that's on me, because it's my name on the wall. That's how I lead. And I think, a lot of people have a hard time, especially entrepreneurs. They have a hard time getting that, because it is a selfish thing being an entrepreneur, and they want all the credit, and they want to blame somebody else when the shit hits the fan. It's not my problem. It's this person. No, to me, if something goes wrong, it's on me.
Yeah, you won't
It all
last
sta-
long. You blame anybody
No,
else.
but that's
true.
that's
That's true. That's
yeah.
why there won't
no
be
one to
anybody
blame.
left.
Right, but
No one
that's
to blame.
servant leadership, and
Right.
I think people need to look at it differently. And I think that's a struggle in the business world, where companies lose people because they don't have servant leaders. But the
right.
companies
Yeah.
that do have servant leaders are the most successful companies. Truly, they are, and that's can be from a big business to a small entrepreneurial type company. I think it's extremely important.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not saying every corporation is the same.
No.
It's more
Oh,
like
totally,
they can
totally.
have an understanding of entrepreneurial spirit and see how these people function. It's a different way of working. They're not going to dot the I's and cross the T's the way that everybody else dots the I's and crosses the T's. But if you let them loose for you, and you let them really hold in on their creative spirit, they're going to do amazing things.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know with what I do and have done at the chambers. Now, it's almost every single event I pull in a nonprofit. I pull in a charity of some kind, because there's people following myself through LinkedIn and through social media channels as well as in person. So why would I stop people from putting these nonprofits and charities in front of them whenever I have the audience to see it? I mean, it gives a good reason behind what I'm doing, not just for bringing in money for the businesses, but also for everybody else in need, because those people could have been business owners or have jobs and lost them or need something. You just don't know who the charities are working
and I
for.
think even the stuff you do for our office, like I just let you do it, and it's amazing, and I give you that free reign, and like we've had amazing events, and just I've gotten so many compliments on the marketing you do, and it's I think when you see people that have that entrepreneurial nature and you just let them loose. And you don't really tell me what, you just do it, right? I mean, we talk about certain things, and I tell you, like, I can't say that.
He is one of the few people who will turn an idea of mine down that I don't like cringe and walk away.
Exactly, because we have discussions.
But I see his perspective at the end, going, "Oh yeah, I can tell." Like, I like your idea better than
you give her the latitude.
Exactly.
What keeps getting pushed? The White Claws with Cozza Law.
They want.
I don't know what that is. I didn't.
They came up. Someone
fun.
came up with it.
That's
they
just
wanted
us
to
being
have.
funny.
Yeah, they wanted to do something stupid with my name. Like, no, can't do that. No.
Mentors. So, may I ask all three of you, do you use them? What's your thoughts on them? If you don't use them, why? Are you against them? And have they been helpful? And any unique stories with your mentors?
I'll kick this off if you guys. All right, because I have very strong feelings about mentors.
Okay.
So when I started, I've done media work on and off now for 15 years, meaning being in front of the camera, hosting things, doing journalism work, that kind of thing. And when I went to the Post-Gazette, I thought, there's so many older women here. This is going to be a treasure trove of mentors for me.
Okay.
And it was the opposite. It was like there was no professional development. No one was interested in supporting the new kid on the block at all. So I started looking for mentors on my own. So I literally probably met, which was good for the column and the work I was doing at the time anyway, to get to know everybody in the city. And I had a few good interactions, but I really wanted to find a mentor, somebody that could really take me to that next level with what I was doing. And I did finally find someone, and he and I worked together for probably about 2 or 3 years. And what I have found in my life is, I think in my mind, I had this idea that a mentor is forever. But no, mentors can be in stages of your career at different moments and different times in different ways. And so I kind of outgrew that relationship, and it ended sort of very naturally on a really good note, but there wasn't really this reason. It was just I knew I needed to move on. And so then I was kind of floating without a mentor for a while. And once again, when you're an entrepreneur, when you're self-employed, especially in the media world, you really do need people that have walked it before you, because it's a very different type of industry, because it's kind of in chaos right now, right? Which is good in a way, because it opens a lot of doors and a lot of experiences, but there's also not a lot of people that have done it before you, right? So you start self-mentoring. And then recently
self-mentoring.
Is
that a thing?
It is now. I just came up with it.
And our next book.
In my next book.
We can trademark that after.
Yeah, exactly.
I like it.
So then recently, within the last few months, I've met a woman who reached out to me after she saw me do an event, and she is really helping me now go to that next level. And so I find it invaluable to have people in your life that have walked the road that are 15, 20 years further down the road too, that have really had that experience. But now I'm in a position where, in order for me to grow, I'm now mentoring young people coming up behind me, because I have found it's not enough to be mentored, but I'm at 37, have learned enough, and the world of media changes so fast that it's important not only to connect with the next group coming up, but also you learn as a mentor so much from people. And I don't think I understood that they were gaining things from mentoring me, right? You think you're just taking their time and you feel so indebted to them. But really now I understand this is an exchange of energy, an exchange of ideas. And so I'm getting great joy out of the young women in my life that are 19 to 24 that are now coming to me and just saying, can you help? Like, this is what I want to do. I love that. So I'm sort of in that accordion space where I still find mentors very valuable to me. Okay. But I also recognize that now it's my turn, that I have something that I can give too. Because I don't know about any of you, but I feel like I have imposter syndrome all the time, where it's like, why would anyone care about what I'm saying, what I'm doing? I don't know anything.
Yeah.
You know, and you
I
really
used to live that way.
it's true. It's like half the day I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I think part of that is, you know, when people start asking you, no, will you help me? You're looking at them like, why are you coming to me? Like, but I do think that there is something to be said for recognizing that you have gifts to share as well. So finding that balance, it also makes you feel good knowing you're paying it forward because someone helped you. Now you open the door and pull it
does.
through.
Absolutely.
Well, I've always taken a lot of love with peer tutoring, mentoring interns, having interns under my wings. And I'm still friends. I go to their weddings and sorry, Nicole, I showed up late to your wedding. She works at the Science Center.
It was the
Shout
GPS.
Out. Yeah. I was like, oh, I'm sneaking in the side. It's fine. But I love that age group. I think that's the best age group. They are so bright-eyed. They're so ready to dive into their careers. They so don't know what they're facing. And I love helping them through and kind of guiding them with what I've learned through the years, which, you know, you walk and then you stumble and you walk and then you stumble and you keep doing that. And I just did that literally at my house. But I love that age group, both the student or the men and the women, I should say, at that age. I think they are so inspiring. I love looking through their perspective at what you're doing and what they're seeing. As far as mentors for me, I'm constantly I hate to say it like that, but I'm constantly watching other people and what they're doing, what their mannerisms are, what they're doing through their businesses, and taking it in. And, you know, even Rocco, I didn't know anything about business law at all when I walked through the door. Marketing is a lot alike and different, no matter kind of what industry you're in, but I still had to learn stuff. And he thinks differently than I do. So that was a good perspective in me learning some of even the entrepreneurial stuff he talks about is, you know, different, and it helps me in my career outside of working with him. So I'd consider you don't take this.
Oh God, be careful what you say.
My
next.
gosh, I'm going to regret this
You're in
forever.
deep doo-doo now.
No, but I do. I've learned a lot being there
that.
about, you know, his viewpoint. And I take that with a lot of different people, you know, through my walks of life and in all my different career paths, what they're doing, how I can do it better. And that's kind of, I think, how I grow my own self is like taking all these different elements from all my different mentors that don't even know they're mentors.
Yeah, right on.
And, you know, creating my entrepreneurship out of that.
Yeah, I mean,
You have an official.
Seriously.
I have, I've been
business coach.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with a coach now for probably 5-6 years, and the first one, kind of the same thing. I outgrew the relationship. It's just it was right at that time in my life, and a few years ago, I was speaking at an event in New York, and I met the guy I work with now. He was a fellow speaker, and he does executive coaching, and he works with athletes, and I did some stuff with athletes. We just connected that way, and he does these assessments. He did this IMX assessment on me, and it was dead on. Like, I'm like, holy shit, like this is exactly me. I've been working with him for about 2.5 years now. So he is the 66-year-old version of me. He kind of grew up the same way in a small, low middle class town, same fraternity as me, different college, kind of just worked in construction and built a successful business, then got into consulting, just kind of did it himself, and his viewpoints are very similar to mine, but he's helped me tremendously, personally and professionally, because I needed someone to push me and challenge me. You know, when you're an entrepreneur, no one challenges you, right? You're just kind of leading, you're just leading and doing, and he calls me on my bullshit, and he challenges me in different ways, and that has helped me tremendously as a person, as a business owner, and hopefully as a mentor to the people that work for me. You know, there's not an official mentor-mentee relationship, but like Matt, who works for us, right? Like, he's a great guy, you know, an amazing attorney, and I feel like I try and mentor him by just acting a certain way and showing him the way I do things, and we have this very good relationship where I think I'm teaching him things and he teaches me things. He's the yin to my yang. You know, he's very detail oriented. I'm big picture. I'll go into a meeting and just talk, and he's the one taking the notes and reminding me what we discussed. And I think you can have those mentor-mentee relationships up, down, and sideways. Because I believe a lot of my mentors are people in the same stage of their career as me, just in different industries.
Yeah.
Like David and I, like we meet once a month and just talk about business and life, and we kind of have that, I believe, that mentor-mentee relationship to one another, and we're just great friends. But we look at the world similarly, and we challenge each other. And I think having those relationships, and I think being an entrepreneur is lonely, right? It's a lonely,
it is,
and you have to find those people.
It can be very lonely.
It can be. So you have to seek that out. And working with a coach was the best decision I could have made. It transformed my business completely.
And to your point, I think what I'm hearing too is that surrounding yourself with yes people is the worst thing you can do
100%.
As an entrepreneur, right? And that's where that whole egocentric drive comes into play, that people that think I'm a leader, everyone has to do what I say. You don't want that. You want people that can bring new ideas to the table and that can challenge you.
You gotta be humble.
And you have to
start with humility.
You have to be ready to learn every day, right?
Yeah.
That curiosity really needs to drive you. And I think too, to your point, saying that he's just like you, just older, further down the road. That's why to me it's like representation matters in this way too, right?
Yeah.
If we don't see it, we can't be it. And so I think it's really important as people think about when they're moving into spaces of leadership, who's watching, right? And making sure that we're being inclusive enough that multiple types of people and various types of people can thrive in spaces of leadership. So the people under them that are coming up maybe have seen that before, and they're like, oh, well, this person looks like me, or we have a similar life or similar story. I could do that too. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think it's great what you said, though, about somebody calling you on your bullshit.
Yeah.
Because
you have to have that.
You have, especially as an entrepreneur, you have to, you're ego-driven. You have to be to keep going. You have to think, this idea is great that I came up with. It's brilliant. It's spectacular. Because there's so much confidence you need behind it to make it go. But you also need that person who knows you well enough to go, okay, Mandy. Like, really? Like,
I mean, that's Mia in our office. Like she's like, that's a dumb idea.
It's a fine. That's a fine line, though. And so I'm a decade to a decade and a half in front of all of you. So I am the interesting entrepreneur that started his business before social media, before the look at me stuff. I started an internet business in '99. Was in corporate America for a decade before. Had a very tragic loss. Lost my only sibling in '96 and was really lost. Great life. We had a great career, but I was searching. Found a guy named Jim Rohn. We talked about a business philosopher. Just whatever the material I could get on cassettes, but that's how old this goes back. But that was like my moment where I found a mentor that I never knew or met, but there was good stuff that I was ingesting to straighten me out, like just get my head straight. Then I went into entrepreneurship, and I took a lot of those principles with me, but I had some immediate success, and I had no gear toward humility. I had everybody around me telling me how amazing this is, and you're doing this, and you're doing that, and the more people around you saying, wow, look at all these good things that are happening to you, you don't have the humility to even have anybody enter your space because you're not looking. And I was in a career doing internet sales in the guitar business, which was almost an anomaly that someone would buy a guitar sight unseen. Like, that's not going to work. Well, I was in a space that was working. So I'm just continually puffing myself up, right? Not getting the legal advice. I don't need legal. Not getting the accounting advice. I don't need it. I know what I'm doing. I had QuickBooks 99. I know what I'm doing. I didn't have a tax account. I did a lot of that stuff. And then when I had a crisis, a second divorce, and the economy turned in 08 and 09, I wasn't emotionally or financially or legally prepared for all that came real quick. Mentors came and went, opportunities. I was just too egocentric with no humility to reach out and find them. We've talked about it at length. I can acknowledge this now where I'm at in my life. I missed golden opportunities to interact with real live human beings with good messages, but I just didn't have the humility. So the message that I could give anyone, especially my children, is that at a young age, be humble enough to realize no matter how good things appear to be, you don't know it all. And maybe your parents don't know either.
That's right.
But if you really are interested in something, you need to seek out and find a coach, find someone who's walked that path before, someone that can contribute to your journey. And the only way you're going to do that is if you're willing to actively listen, and the only way you will actively listen is if you enter with humility. I can't stress that enough. I sound like a preacher, and I don't mean to sound that way, but that humility thing, I spent a good part of my life not ingesting, and it cost me money. I was in a wonderful industry that I had a name for ourselves, and I left it prematurely because of ego. So I can recognize these mistakes, and if we've talked before, Rocco, if anyone can look at my story as an example of like, hey, there's an example of something going right but going out of control, I would hope that somebody could look in maybe and say, hey, before I let my circumstance go that direction, maybe I need to find somebody to help put me on the right path. That's what a mentor means to me, is the awareness that I had opportunities to find that person and I didn't take it. The regrets that I have that I didn't take it. Does that make any sense?
It does, absolutely. And I think that's why we need to talk about toxic masculinity, because it puts men in these boxes, I think, in a lot of times where you can't reach out for help. And I say this because
that's true.
I'm picking up sort of this underlying, yes, it's ego, but it's interesting to me that the times in your life where it seemed like you had clarity was after a death or a loss of some kind, right?
No doubt.
And so it took your world and spun it on its head, so to speak, right? And it forced you out of that headspace, out of that box. And I think we, living in a patriarchal culture, I don't think we recognize how it hurts men at all. And we never acknowledge that. We really don't. And to your point, had you maybe grown up in a space where you could have been a little freer to ask those questions, where it wasn't a sign of failure.
Agreed.
To be humble.
I'm right there with you.
What would that have done for you? And can we pass that along to our young men or people that identify as male? Can we pass that along to them? Because that's going to make them better fathers, better husbands, better business owners, better society members, better lovers, but all of it. Better friends.
It was a space I grew up in where the expectations were too one-sided for the male figure that I was entering the world as. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely.
It doesn't. I don't feel that understanding that now diminishes my masculinity, my appropriate masculinity in any way, shape, or form.
I think it expands it.
I think it can be out of. I think left unchecked, and I do believe it goes back to the lack of even understanding what the word humility was. If you tried to explain the word humility to me in the essence of the Boogie Street years at its height in 2006, when the world was my oyster in my little world, I couldn't even define what the word humility meant.
Sure.
I couldn't even tell you what the definition. I'd have to go to Webster's and actually look that up. That's a shame.
Yeah. Well, I think to your point, the toxic masculinity discussion, I think, is an interesting one, because I think we need to redefine masculinity.
Absolutely.
And I think
and femininity.
Well, absolutely. But I'm just speaking from my perspective, right? And I look at it as men have been put in boxes. I believe we've been. If you act a certain way, you're labeled as toxically masculine, which I'm an alpha male. I'm confident. I act a certain way. Some people would label me as that. I don't think that's right.
That's not the definition that I look at toxic masculinity.
But I think it's so unclear as to what that definition is, that people would label someone like me as that if they don't understand what it really means. And that's why I think we need to be clear on how we're defining masculinity and femininity. I think those are two things that are thrown around a lot in society that aren't truly defined. Like, I think being masculine is I'm confident, but I'm vulnerable. Like, I'm okay to admit my mistakes, and I'm the most flawed human being there is, and I'm okay with that. I accept my faults and my flaws, and I will ask for help if I need it. But I'll also stand on the front lines and fight for what I believe in, and I'm not going to back down just because someone says I'm being toxic. Like, if I believe in something,
I don't find that to be the word toxic. Doesn't what you described doesn't
that sounds more evolved of masculinity.
But I think, but I've spoken to a lot of people that believes that is because that definition is thrown around and that there's no clarity behind it.
I understand.
That people think if you're aggressive or if you believe strongly in something that you're just being a toxic male. I'm like, no, I just have conviction about what we're talking about. And I'm not going to back down just because you're calling me something. And I think we need to redefine that, because I think that is doing damage. to society and people coming up. And I think we do need leaders in all genders, and I think we just need to redefine how we're using these terms, because I think it's creating a very skewed perception of reality.
But isn't it interesting, once you actually start to label things, then you can actually talk about them, right? Because I think what happens a lot of times is people are afraid of being labeled as something, or being targeted as something, or being called out for something. But language is so powerful that it can be incredibly transformative. So the way that we define something today is not the way that it's going to be defined 15 years from now, or 10 years from now, or at the pace of how language is moving these days, right? It could be 6 months from now.
Yes, very true.
So,
Probably.
Yeah. And so to go back to what we were discussing, when I was pointing out that space that you were in, right? I wasn't looking at you as being this toxic person, but the framework was toxic that we were existing in and that we continue to exist in. And so how do we shift consciousness and framework? We have to have conversations that are uncomfortable with everyone. And I think that's why these types of platforms, whether they're broadcast to 10 million people or 50 people, right? If someone picks up on something and it changes the way that they feel about something, or they, even better, pick up a book or look online and read some articles and start to do some homework for themselves, that is how we actually start to change things, right? But it begins with having uncomfortable conversation.
Just having the dialogue, period. That's it. I want to thank the three of you.
Of course.
And thank you. I know you're under a time constraint.
Oh, no, I appreciate the opportunity. This was so great.
We could have gone for another hour and a half. This is so good. This is
Always.
fun. This is so good.
I've been here for 3 days. I came out, it's sunny.
She was sleeping in here when I came in.
If you're all agreeable, at some point in the future, I'd like to reconvene.
Yeah.
Super.
Sure.
Absolutely. This would be a blast.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, man.
Thank you so much.
Well, and
You're
thank
very
you
welcome.
once again for having me on. And
You must be doing
everything else.
something right.
Yeah.
All right, friends. We are out.
Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project.